Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Family Sedan channel. Well, you can panic if you want. I ain't gonna stop you. But I'll tell you this right here at the outset of the video. The smart money, the hedge funds, the big money, they're preparing for the next crypto bull run right now. I'm going to share with you perspective from the first cryptocurrency hedge fund, the founder of it, in the United States. That'd be Pantera. And look, it's a tale as old as time. And frankly, you know, markets go up, there's euphoria, then there's a panic, and then crypto tumbles on down. A bunch of people panic sell. Then you get the news headlines of it's the end of crypto and all that, and Bitcoin's dead yet again. But it never is, and crypto's not going away. This asset class will not cease to exist as long as the internet exists. I firmly believe that to be the case. To me, it couldn't be more obvious personally. And so that's why I have been buying. I have made on 2 days in a row as the market's tanked. I made some way larger than normal purchases. I did deploy some of the capital that I've been sitting on the sidelines here. Now that said, I do want to warn you, there's news of the FTX collapse, which is now known as a contagion spreading throughout the entire cryptosphere. I do have updated information. It is spreading, and it could result in tremendous fallout. I don't pretend to know for sure what's going to happen, but I'm warning you, this could happen. It's similar, some think even worse than what happened with the collapse of Luna and then Celsius and Voyager and all that. I mean, this is impacting now. So BlockFi reported on them yesterday. Grayscale went silent. I do have an update on that. They were silent for a week, and then they started talking today. Then you've got Genesis. They halted withdrawals now, and it's because of FTX. You've got the Winklevoss's cryptocurrency exchange, Gemini. And then there was another fund, and I can't remember if I talked about it yesterday. I may have. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank on it. But there's a separate investing fund, and I can't remember the name of it now. But they're completely wiped out, it looks like. So they're probably not coming back. I think I talked about it on the channel yesterday. And so this is just what's happened in the initial days. I think behind the scenes, a lot of these other platforms, it's pure chaos. And they know, many of these other platforms, I'm assuming, know that they're screwed because of the shady actor Sam Bankman-Fried, who was the founder and CEO of FTX. So it's kind of like a mixed message. Like I'm positive and optimistic. I'm not losing sleep over any of this stuff, even though my net worth's way down because my crypto holdings are way down because of the FTX collapse. I'm excited for the opportunity. That's just how I choose to look at it. And so even though I'm warning, yes, things get lower, for me, that's not something to be scared about, because it's not a sign that crypto is going to cease to exist. I think it's just going to result in additional capitulation and basically people freaking out. And I expect humans to behave like that if really scary news comes out. I'm not going to be participating in that nonsense. So it's a positive in terms of seeing how some institutional investors are already positioning themselves. I'm just kind of warning you that, just control your emotions. If it could get worse in the coming weeks and months, but it's still a positive message though, because even if that happens, it is not going to be the end of the world. But before sharing with you additional thoughts and specifics on what's going on here, I do want to be clear that I do not have a financial background of any kind. I'm not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And by the way, I wanted to highlight this poll, which I posted on November 12th, actually, and then it ran for 24 hours. And I've been meaning to highlight this because I was just kind of curious, how'd you all behave when the scary news of FTX collapsing hit? Because we saw markets tanking. I was wondering, how did you all react, though? Like people that, people on Twitter, many of which would be following me on Twitter. And I tweeted out the following on November 12th. As crypto markets plummeted after the FTX fraud was exposed, what did you do? Did you increase or decrease your quantity of crypto held? I'm talking quantity of crypto held, not what it's worth in dollars or whatever your fiat currency of choice is. Or did you do nothing? And here were the results. There were 1,590 votes, and 53.6% of respondents increased crypto holdings, 53.6. Only 3.7% decreased crypto holdings. Interesting. And then 42.6% did nothing. So it's interesting. I mean, the typical retail speculator, they may not be on Twitter. They may not be part of the XRP community. They may be less informed. I think the typical retail investor, when it comes to crypto and stocks, frankly, they're less informed, let's say, and they act differently. So it's not as surprising to see that most people increase their holding. No, if you sold, by the way, this is not me knocking you. I mean, I don't know what's right for you. For some people, if you got to make sure that you got money pay for whatever your bills are, whatever it is. I'm not telling you to buy or sell or hold. I'm not judging you specifically. I don't know your circumstances. But I do think a lot of people do panic sell when it's not necessarily the right decision. But if you sold and you're listening to this, I'm not saying that that was the case for you necessarily. I'm just saying it's just an undeniable truth of life. A lot of people panic sell. And it's typically not a good idea, right? It's just to make important financial decisions based on emotions. I'm not going to do that. I'm sure as hell not going to do that. And so I can't vote on my own poll, but if I could have, then I would have, I would have been that 53.6% right there, because I bought more. I got excited, but yeah, I was like, my net worth went down, but I was like, whatever. It's just on paper anyway. I got income coming in. I can pay my bills. I can buy stuff if I want to. It's fine. I got a wad of cash sitting in my checking account, more than is reasonable, frankly, to deploy for just such a scenario like this, a black swan event just like this. It actually came, and I'd been saying for probably a month or two leading up to this, if we actually get one of these events, whatever the cause, I don't care. If it happens, I'm going to deploy capital. I sure as hell did. Absolutely I did. And if it goes lower, and I suspect it may, but don't know for sure, I think it's probable. We'll see. Yeah, I'm going to deploy way more capital. I'm just waiting to see what happens here. And I'm not the only one thinking along these lines, obviously, not just because of that poll, but look at this from the Daily Huddle. Pantera Capital reveals $149,000 Bitcoin price target, and here's the timeline. Crypto fund Pantera Capital says that the next Bitcoin halving event will spark a bull rally beginning in early 2024. We'd love to see it sooner than that, but if we have to wait a little over a year for things to get fun and exciting, I mean, it's exciting now, but not in a good way, right? If we want to see fun and exciting simultaneously, if we have to wait a little bit, fine. I'm here for it. Like, even in the bad times, I'm always going to run this channel. I don't get scared and run away. I'm happy to be here. It's fun. I enjoy all of it. I really do. Almost literally. Almost literally. Bitcoin maxi trolls exist, and there's some other things too. But Dan Moorhead, who is the CEO of Pantera Capital, rather, he's very pro XRP, mind you. And he even stated within the last couple of years or so, I'll paraphrase here, but he said, if you fast forward a decade or so, there's probably going to be about a dozen cryptocurrencies remaining. And, XRP is going to be one of them. That he had that personal perspective on that. And so I don't know if it's really only going to be 12. I don't know what the number is going to be. Maybe it's a lot more than that. But I do think the vast majority of the over 20,000 cryptos in existence will go to zero. So I don't pretend to know what the number is going to be or how things are going to unfold. And if you're talking about tokenized assets, well, then it's way more than a dozen, obviously. But if you're talking about decentralized cryptocurrencies, you don't need a crazy number. I don't think anyway. I can't think of a reason today why you would. But check this out. So Pantera Capital CEO Dan Moorhead and other executives are telling investors that the price of Bitcoin is likely to bottom throughout November and pick up steam ahead of the next halving. A Bitcoin halving event is when miners' block rewards are cut in half and, as a result, the supply is crunched. In the past, Bitcoin's price has rallied before and after the halving events. The next one is expected this spring, and here's a quote. Bitcoin has historically bottomed 477 days prior to the halving, climbed leading into it, and then exploded to the upside afterward. The post-halving rallies have averaged 480 days from the halving to the peak of that next bull cycle. If history were to repeat itself, the price of Bitcoin would trough November 30th, 2022. And we would then see a rally into early 2024, and then a strong rally after the actual halving. The following chart shows what might happen if Bitcoin repeats the performance around previous halvings. Okay, so I'll just pause a note here. I'm not saying that the Bitcoin halving doesn't have any sort of impact at all, but I am insisting that and they acknowledge this too, with each halving that occurs, it's that much less important. It's the amount of Bitcoin getting cut in half, in terms of what's getting mined, but over 19 million Bitcoin out of a max supply of 21 million have already been mined. At some point, it's just not gonna matter. It's like if there were only 10 Bitcoin left to get mined, just in theory, and then there's a halving, and then there's, it cuts that in half. What are we talking about here? The whole supply's almost out there. So it's, I'm just saying, with each halving, it becomes that less consequential. It was very consequential for most of the first decade or so of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's existence, halvings occurring every, several years, but still fine. They seem to think that it's going to be a thing to some degree, and they actually do account in the weakening importance of this. So check this out, in terms of habits. Pantera predicts Bitcoin's price will soar to $36,000 In the lead up to the next halving that's expected to occur in March 2024, and afterward continue its bull run to an all-time high of $149,000. And here's another quote. The 2020 halving reduced the supply of new Bitcoins by 43% relative to the previous halving. It had a 23% as big an impact on price. The next halving is expected to occur on March 22nd, 2024. Since most Bitcoins are now in circulation, each halving will be almost exactly half as big a reduction in new supply. If history were to repeat itself, the next halving would see Bitcoin rising to $36,000 before the halving and $149,000 after, end quote. And so look, things seem dire right now, and these high prices seem impossible to many people when it's scare times out there, but I don't think so because I'm not scared. Not in the least. I am nothing but optimistic. This asset class is going to be gigantic, increasingly gigantic. Now, mind you, when I started this channel almost 4 years ago, what did the market cap get down to? Like 150 billion or something like that? Like, we just had a gigantic Ponzi collapse, world's second largest cryptocurrency exchange, and we're at $850 billion in market cap. And this is where people are freaking out. When several years ago, after the freakout and the collapse of Bitcoin hitting its 2017 high of close to 20 grand, broke down to what, I don't remember exactly what the number was. I think it was around 150 billion. Again, we're at 850 billion today. It's all about perspective. Like, I am not the least bit afraid. And the reason it's not going to go to zero is because cryptocurrencies are valuable. And I'm not talking about price when I say that. Price is important, fine. When I say value, I'm talking about what can be done. There are things that can be done, businesses that can exist that otherwise couldn't exist. It's changing the way that people move value around the internet even. It's changing human behavior. Humans like to be able to engage in this new behavior, including tipping on the internet with cryptocurrencies. It's changing how humans behave. They don't want to give that up. They're not going to give that up. That represents actual value. This is not going away, period. It couldn't be more obvious after 13 years, which is why I'm excited. But still, I will warn, could get a bit rocky in the weeks and months ahead, potentially. I'm not Nostradamus here, though, so damn it, I don't pretend to know exactly what's going to occur. I'm just warning, hey, it's possible. And if it happens, you don't need to have a negative emotional response, I mean, unless you're like severely over leveraged or you have something invested in a platform that tanks. Okay, that would be different. Fine. I'm just saying in a general sense in terms of, like, do you need to worry about crypto continuing to exist years into the future? No, that's what I mean. And so I put out a video last night where I noted that Grayscale had gone silent. They usually post at least once, sometimes multiple times per day. And they went silent for an entire week. And as of last night, and I showed the Twitter page, there was nothing there. And so I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, what's going on with Grayscale? Why aren't they talking? Is Grayscale insolvent? There's something going on. We don't know what's Grayscale, which is just speculation, admittedly. Not that I actually thought they were insolvent, but it's just like the mind kind of goes to these crazy, well, they're not that crazy places when you have big collapses like this, because there is this contagion effect for sure. Well, Grayscale ended up noting publicly here, and I'll just take their word at face value, that they're solvent and nothing's wrong, but they didn't explain why they went silent for an entire week. They didn't explain that. Now, they are they're owned by a Digital Currency Group. Digital Currency Group is hit by the FTX fraud. They own, to what degree, I don't know for sure, but they own Genesis, which is a platform that a whole bunch of other platforms gave money to. Now, Genesis, they halted withdrawals on their platform. We just got news of that. Genesis is also owned by Digital Currency Group. So I don't know if it's just a thing where every company owned by Digital Currency Group, including Grayscale, that the word was, don't talk about anything, just go silent. Maybe it's as simple as that, and maybe Grayscale actually truly is what they're saying. They are solvent, and I don't have a reason to think they're lying, so they're probably telling the truth. Okay, fine. Maybe it's as simple as that, but Genesis, ooh, this is bad. Now, this is one hell of a contagion here. And you can see, here's a headline from CNBC. Gemini, BlockFi, Genesis announcing new restrictions as FTX contagion spreads. And with Gemini too, I can't remember I don't know if I cited this accurately. I'm thinking about it at the outset of the video. It's not that they halted withdrawals on their platform, the exchange portion, but they have they have interest-bearing accounts effectively, so you can loan out your crypto. That's what they halted withdrawals on. And it actually makes sense as to why, because they're using a third party to make that program possible. And so it seems that the exchange itself, Gemini, is solvent as far as we know. But the Earn program that they have, that's what they call Gemini Earn, not solvent. So Gemini hit by this as well. This is you see, one thing happens with FTX, there's a bank run on the exchange, and then the money's the control. It's just like, what a web, of nonsense here. And so they got hit. So, and take a look. This was an excellent explanation of what happened here. There's an account named Yano. This is Jason Yanowitz, with the founder of Blockworks, 95,800 followers. And Blockworks has somewhere north of actually over 350,000, maybe it's 375,000 followers on Twitter. You may have heard of Blockworks. But I want to share part of this really long thread that's relevant specifically to this so you can get an idea of why this is happening and why Gemini is impacted by Genesis. So check this out. And this is bad. This is truly, which is why I think that there's a bunch of other platforms out there that we just haven't heard publicly from yet, or that are insolvent, and they're just completely, I wouldn't be surprised anyway. So, but here's what Jason Yanowitz said. So why is the downfall of Genesis so bad? Dozens of companies like Gemini use Genesis to help their consumers earn yields. That means earn interest. So again, to be clear, that means you hand the keys of your crypto over to Gemini, and then you earn interest as a result because you're loaning your asset out. But check this out. Yanowitz continues. If you are a centralized finance platform that offers yield, you probably use Genesis. And again, that's what Gemini does. Using some rough numbers and simplifying the process a bit, here's how it works. You give your crypto to Gemini. Gemini gives your crypto to Genesis. Genesis lends your crypto to a fund. Now the fund borrows from Genesis at X plus 2%, whatever X is, X plus 2%. Then Genesis gives Gemini X plus 1%, so they get the other 1%. And then Gemini gives you X percent. So your cut of whatever that 1% would be is smaller. But if you look in terms of what the yield is in terms of annually, they wrote here on Gemini's page here, you can see it was like 8.05%, or up to that anyway. So you wouldn't necessarily get that. And then Yano continues and says, voila, you now earn yield. But this only works if the counterparties that Genesis lent to can actually repay their borrow. If Genesis can't get their crypto back, they can't give the crypto back to Gemini or insert any other crypto centralized finance platform, which means Gemini can't give you your crypto. So exactly, pause note here. Again, to be super duper clear, Gemini gave your crypto away to a third party. That's what you agreed to. And as a result, they can't give it back to you when you want it because they gave it to firms that were impacted by FTX. So check this out. Yanowitz continues. Beyond that, nearly every whale I know that plays in crypto gives money to Genesis. Instead of earning yield on the BlockFis and Geminis of the world, they give direct to Genesis to earn yield. Now those institutions, family offices, and whales can't get their crypto back. And this is why Genesis halting withdrawals is so bad. They sit at the direct center of crypto capital markets. They custody funds. They help institutions earn yield. They are the yield product for centralized finance platforms. It's not good. So let's think about this, Paul. If Gemini can't get their funds back and they're one of the larger exchanges, what do you think everybody else is doing? Do you think they're getting their funds back? And Genesis is absolutely gigantic. They're owed a boatload of money. Yanowitz continues. Where do we go from here? Hopefully, Digital Currency Group has the funds to backstop this. I would assume they don't, and that they're racing to raise money right now. So I'll pause to say that's why I'm guessing Grayscale also is client. So even though Grayscale, as we understand, is solvent to this point, Digital Currency Group, can they backstop what happened with their subsidiary Genesis? Yanowitz is speculating no, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's accurate. So probably trying to raise money so that it doesn't go belly up. But you can if Genesis ceases to exist, so this is bad enough that they halted the withdrawals. But if they cease to exist, what are all those other firms going to do? It's a gigantic deal. Anyway, Yanowitz continues. They raised at $10 billion in November 2021. He's talking about Digital Currency Group. I guess they raised at a valuation roughly 10 to 20% of that. It's rough, folks. So anyway, I'm still optimistic. I'm just warning things could get a lot worse before better, but I'm down for it. Whatever happens, I'm here. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because if anything I say are right, that would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Family sedan.